A show that has remained in my mind since the blockbuster days is Nightwalker: Midnight Detective. It's something of a wonderfully erotic show about the vampire Shido and his team of two attractive women detectives who chip away at mysteries involving nightbreeds, creatures who plague the city and attack its civilians. Also, the rating to this, according to IMDb, is a bloody disgrace because it's only at 6.8 when it should really be in the 7 to 8 range, speaking personally. So what makes the show so great? I would say it's the way its characters are written and designed, firstly. Secondly, it's the psychological approach to themes that are what I really love about this show. Also, let me point out that the opening song is by Bucktick, which already sets the tone for the thrill that the show packs. Bucktick is also a relatively mysterious band with the striking and charismatic Atsushi at the forefront. There's also something very American about this anime that I can't quite pinpoint, but a strong guess is that within Nightwalker's aesthetics and narrative, there's this image I have of a detective's office in New York. When we look at Shido's literal office, this association becomes more clear. I suppose I'm trying to say that the way Nightwalker is told is so reminiscent of American films from the 80s and 90s, or even DC comics, which take place in gritty urban areas and where city life is a major visual aspect. Yes, it's faintly like a DC comic or vampire film, just in anime form. So I'm gonna be speaking from my memory, which by now is like around 8 years old, because this was back in the blockbuster days, and behind all of the suggestive and naughty imagery of Nightwalker's characters, there's also the fact that the characters are so well designed and fleshed out that I remember each of them vividly. So let's start with Shido, the leader and vampire in question with a past he's desperate to escape, having known a life previously occupied with hedonistic violence while he was under the manipulation and submission/servitude of his ex-partner Kane. Theirs was a scandalous romantic relationship, and both Kane and Shido are from earlier centuries. Remember that vampires don't age, and Shido is from very early times. And this is a relationship that haunts Shido and makes a return as the show progresses. Their toxic relationship drew me into the show further, because it was sort of like a thing that the viewer uncovered right at the midpoint of the show, and something that really prompts you to want to uncover and peel back the layers of, to understand like why Shido is so tormented. And what about Yayoi? Similar to Shido, she has a past that she regrets or wants to move on from. She takes on the appearance and beauty of her sister, whose face was grafted onto Yayoi after a lengthy encounter with a nightbreed. She harbored resentment towards her sister previously because she at one point was more beautiful. Yayoi is likable to me because she is so drastically different to her younger self, who was vengeful and violent. Shido and Yayoi seem to be very similar parallels, similar in age and in backstory. And this is something that I really took note of when I was younger and watching this for the first time, is that the characters have sort of unsavory pasts, and this continues to be very different to the animes that you see today, where characters usually are never the bad guy or don't have any sort of shameful pasts, wherein the protagonist is actually the one who's in the wrong. Then we have Riho, the youngest of the team, who yearns and longs for Shido's affection, but she also yearns and longs for the sense of belonging that she spends most of the show trying to pursue. She's meek, and she's defined by that longing. This longing is also solidified when she eventually decides to abandon her humanity to become a vampire by Shido's side. This is kind of romantic, but for the most part she remains the receiver of an unrequited love. And then coming back to the design of each character, we have Shido, who is mystical in appearance. He's also very androgynous, and he has the air of being not of this world. I think this works greatly into Shido's favor because he is a vampire from earlier centuries, so he stands out, and he is a contrast to Yayoi and Riho, who are more of the urban/gritty, modern origin. Then we have Yayoi, who is attractive, mature, pretty, and confident. She's somewhat of a femme fatale, and she's also a contrast to Riho, who is more of the vulnerable, pretty maiden type, and we essentially have two feminine archetypes defined in this show. for me it was very, very cool to see sort of the more American archetypes, which deal with the femme fatale, or the maiden, or the damsel in distress. Though I know that these are kind of archetypes that you see throughout other animes, but they seem to come off very American in Nightwalker. Both Yayoi and Riho kind of tie together the show with their archetypes and what they embody. Bringing it back to Kane and Shido, their relationship is scandalous, and so the feeling that I got when I came across them on screen was always that of walking into a room and seeing something that you shouldn't have seen. So I think this was a really major aspect to the plot that kind of drew me in, because it was very scandalous, and we're dealing with themes of being, indulgent and violent as a vampire, which entails having to kill people for their blood supply. And even Shido's relationship with Yayoi is like this as well, because Yayoi is a blood donor to Shido, and they have sort of this sensual, sexual relationship. Then we have the very philosophical undercurrents of the show, which deal with characters like Shido and Yayoi kind of looking back at their past and having conflicting feelings, or a lot of feelings of regret towards it, and I'm pretty sure there's many scenes where Shido looks forlornly at his pasts, and there's even a scene where he's in the theater with Riho looking at the sunset, at the artificial sunset from the film, and thinking back on how his humanity was taken from him from the likes of Kane, and how he'll never be able to enjoy a natural sunset because he's a vampire and he cannot go out during the day. So these are just really brilliant moments in the show that I look back on and think, wow, this is really kind of having me emphasize with these characters who are longing for something that can no longer be returned to them rightfully.